I don't think I've ever been more worried about a basketball player getting injured when I watch them play than I am when I see Zion Williamson step on the court. With the regular season just days away, there's already been some injury concern around the Pelican superstar. Welcome back, everybody, to your #1 source for learning about everything related to sports injuries and sports medicine news. In this video, we're going to take a look at why I'm so concerned about Zion Williamson getting injured in his NBA career. First, we'll focus on his gait or his walking pattern and how this might make him susceptible to injuries. And then we'll talk about how his body composition, his style of play, and just his sheer size and athleticism influence his chance of getting injured and his load on his different tissues. Make sure and go subscribe if you like this type of content and want to stay up to date with future videos this upcoming basketball season, and let's get started. A person's gait is the particular pattern and biomechanics displayed whenever they walk or run. Different aspects of a person's gait can clue us into potential disease or pathology going on, or tell us about potential injury risk based on different patterns. This is particularly relevant when we look at someone's jumping and landing mechanics, but we can also get some information just watching them walk and run. We've seen two examples of Zion's gait, and I'm far from the first person to talk about just how abnormal and off this looks. He has this sort of side-to-side movement at his waist with his upper body, and it looks like there's some funky stuff going on in his legs as well. Focusing on this first clip, I want to talk about the position of his legs. Ideally, we like to see someone have good neutral alignment between the hips, the knee, and the ankle. There's two abnormal positions we can see at the knee, and those are referred to as varus and valgus. Valgus is also like a knock-kneed position when the knees are bent inward, and varus is when the knees are bent outward. Neither of these knee positions are healthy whenever it's too extreme, and especially not in someone who's a high-level athlete. Going back to the clip here, focus on that alignment of Zion's legs and his knees. To me, it appears that he has a component of some valgus alignment, or those knees kind of bending inward. We can pause this and even draw a line from the foot up to the knee and then up to the hip, and you can tell how things look like they're kind of falling inward a little bit. It's possible that some of this is coming from his feet. He could have more pronated feet or more flat feet, and that can be what sometimes cause these people to give this appearance like their legs are kind of falling inward, but it looks to me like this is a little bit of a knee valgus alignment whenever he's walking. This knee position is particularly troublesome whenever someone is jumping or landing and displaying the same position. It's one of the highest risk factors for an ACL tear, particularly if we see this knee collapse inward whenever someone's landing. It's called dynamic knee valgus, and it's one of the things we try to improve with ACL prevention programs. What's most important is certainly how these look whenever he's jumping and landing and running up and down the court, but just seeing this with his normal walking pattern to me is concerning. The second thing to talk about is the movement of his trunk or his upper body as he's walking. He tends to display this kind of side-to-side movement where it looks like when he steps, he's kind of rocking from one side to the other. People have commented how this seems similar to when someone has hip pain and how they walk. And yeah, there are features of this that are similar. If you have pathology or pain in your hip, your body tries to offload the amount of pressure going through your hip joint by shifting your weight over to kind of move your center of gravity off to the outside of the hip and take some of the weight off of the bones. This is what causes people to look like they're rocking from side to side whenever they're walking with hip pain, and we call this a Trendelenburg gait. You can also have this gait pattern with weakness in your hip muscles, but we primarily see it in patients who have hip pain. Now, I don't think Zion has some hip pathology or hip disease going on that's causing him pain and making him walk like this, but if you've seen these clips and thought something looks strange about this, yeah, this isn't a normal gait pattern to have this side-to-side movement at the waist. The second thing that makes me worried about him getting hurt is just his sheer size and athleticism and the style of play. As a freshman in high school, Zion reportedly was 6'3" and weighed 175 pounds. By the time he got to Duke 4 years later, he had only grown 4 inches, but had put on 100 pounds. Whenever you're gaining weight and building muscle, the rest of the tissues in your body, like your ligaments and tendons, don't necessarily grow at the same pace of your weight gain. So when Zion puts on that much weight in that short of a time period, the rest of the soft tissues around his joints are not yet strong enough to support that load and put you at higher risk of injury. Certainly now in the NBA, those structures have had more time to try to compensate for his excessive load and the force which he puts through his joints, but I still think this makes him a really high risk of injury. It's no secret that Zion's style of play could in and of itself be classified as high risk for injury. Anytime you have someone taking such aggressive moves to the rim and jumping up as high as he is, you're going to be at more risk of getting hurt. If you combine that style of play with an excessive amount of body weight, you're putting all those soft tissues around your joints at a super high risk of getting hurt. There's all kinds of examples of Zion putting himself in these sort of high risk positions. We saw the insane amount of power he was putting through his legs whenever he ripped out of his shoe when he was back at Duke. And just one particular example from this preseason here, we can see him down by the rim and he's twisting his body in a fun way. He's landing on one leg, kind of pushing off to the side, coming into the rim. These are just very unnatural movements that so far he's been able to make because of his athleticism. I'd be most worried about injuries to his ankle and to his knees just based on what we've discussed. This recent report about some soreness in his knee and the fact that Woj tweeted that this is more than just standard rest, of course has people concerned about another injury. There's a lot of stuff that could be explaining this soreness in the knee, but I think the biggest thing we have to think about is how his excessive load and body weight puts additional force on your tendons. Your quadriceps and patellar tendon are going to be subjected to more force the more body weight you have, the more you're jumping and cutting. But we've also got to think about structures like the meniscus that are susceptible to more of that shearing injury whenever someone jumps land and sort of shears across the knee. The bigger you are, the farther you've got to come down after jumping, the more load you're putting through that meniscus, making it susceptible to getting hurt. I would love to see Zion either drop some weight or at least try to somewhat adjust his style of play. What he's doing right now and what he did at Duke, I just do not think is going to be sustainable for an NBA career without suffering some major type of injury. Big men in general are often injury plagued in the NBA, and now you combine that big man body with the high-flying athleticism of a point guard, and you've got a really bad combination. I know you guys probably think I get excited when someone gets hurt, but I truly do not want to see Zion get injured this season. I'm just as big of an NBA fan as everybody watching these, and I want to see him play. I'm super excited to see what he's able to do on the court, but I think we've got to watch out for these things and have a little concern. Thanks as always for watching, everybody, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.